time system of the Mayan calendar is based on a uniquely different concept of time. You have to understand that first of all, and that for the Mayans, time is a factor of synchronization. Time is the universal factor of synchronization, which is very different from how we think of time.
The Mayan calendar is a system of timekeeping in cycles, and it has been proven time and time again to be perhaps one of the most accurate systems ever noted by humankind. It has tracked without fail every solar eclipse, every lunar eclipse, and even takes into account changes in the rotation and the speed of the rotation of the Earth to accommodate these.
This 13 Baktun cycle of time is a great world age period.
Whether or not time ends in 2012, we should be assuming that it will, so that we take care of business. Secondly, and maybe more important, is don't cancel your appointments for 2013.
I thought about the myths of the Garden of Eden. These legends tell us that once men and women lived in a beautiful garden where everything was perfect. There was no pain, no death. The world was in balance and harmony. That sounded like a golden age to me.
I think there's going to be more outbreaks of telepathy, for one thing. There will probably be an increase in Earth changes. Well, it's already happening. But I've seen around me an increase in telepathy in my friends and family.
Rather than being something unexpected that comes down on us in a horrific or scary way, we're now learning that it's not what we thought it was. Armageddon is not what it used to be.
We don't live in a democracy any longer. We live in a mediocrity. And our media is creating and perpetuating a cultural trance that we've all subscribed to.
It's not just the Mayan calendar. There's other monuments and other religions and other myths across the world that are also pointing towards this time period as being one of the most important time periods in the history of the world.
This is what makes history so interesting. It's a runaway freight train on a dark and stormy night.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing, and I am so excited to have my dear friends Sharron Rose and Jay Weidner here today to talk about their incredible 10th anniversary of the 2012 movie, which I think I've watched 15 times, if not more, that was produced and actually was launched in 2006. So welcome, you guys, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us. And the birth of the whole idea for 2012, and you're right, it's 16 years ago it came out, and it was a smash hit. And I think it was our biggest grossing film of all time, as I remember. And so what happened was that I was in the midst of, I just published my 2 books, and John Major Jenkins, who wrote Maya Cosmogenesis 2012, and I were really good friends, and Sharron was good friends, and he was coming over and visiting us in Seattle at the time, and we would have long discussions and talk. And what we're really talking about is this is from my first book. So there's 2 planes in outer space that we're talking about. One is the plane of the equinoxes. So every year the equinoxes move a little bit to the opposite way of the zodiac. And every 72 years, that equinox goes for a full 1 degree. So every human life is like 1 degree of the equinox, interestingly enough. And so eventually this describes a 26,000 year-long great year that's inscribed in the sky as the Earth tilts. It inscribes. So we go through all the constellations and we get back to where we were in 26,000 years. And this is called the precession of the equinoxes. And we show you that 2,000 years ago, this was where the equinoxes were with the galactic center. This is 700 years ago. And then this is 1998 to 2012. It's a perfect cross. It only happens once every 26,000 years. And the Mayans talked about it. And of course, the Cross of Henday that I was working on was talking about the same thing. And we found several other traditions that were talking about it. And so, you know, we're having all these really exciting discussions in our house. And Sharon's like sitting there listening to this. And then, you know, she's like, hey, wait a minute, you know, there's like this incredible idea here that, you know, we're in this transformative event. And before I give it to Sharon so she can tell her story, I just want to say that I'm reading this book, by the way, on Reality Check every Wednesday night. I'm reading another section. And so we're kind of regurgitating all of this stuff that we went through a long time ago. And so the 14-year period, 1998, we entered into the cross and we left the cross in December 21st, 2012. If you start thinking about it, there was a huge amount of advances technologically, spiritually, politically, that happened in that time period. And everything's kind of plateaued off now. From 2012 on, everything's kind of flatlined. I was thinking about video. In 1998, we had VHS. By 2012, we were streaming. And DVDs came and went in that time period, right? And streaming started in 2012, 2011, 2012. And we're still streaming. There's been no advances in technologies. The same thing is true in a plethora of other sciences where there's been this flattening off, as if the exuberance of the age reached its top and now it's going this way. And it's very interesting. And another thing that really, I think, happened in that time period, because people like David Wilcock were running around saying, oh, everybody's going to be telepathic and we're going to be living psychedelic lives, and who wants to be on mushrooms 24/7, you know, yuck. And all this. And I was like, no, that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be much more subtle than that. And what I really believe happened, the most important thing that happened in that time period is that not only did we advance spiritually in profound ways, but we came to the understanding that we were living in a theater world. That's what, by 2012, we had all reached a conclusion of most of what we were seeing wasn't actually real. It was just theater. It was put on to distract us and to make us not concentrate on the ball and all that other stuff. And so, that's what I think about that. And then finally, I just got to say that these films are only up for people who subscribe to our private channel. And you know, this is public, but if you want to see the films, and that has a sequel also, Time Wave 2013, then you have to you're going to have to subscribe. Sorry, folks, that's the way it is. Anyway, so Sharron was came up with the idea, and then she, you know, sort of wrote it out, sketched it out, and then I became the cameraman, the lighting man, the sound man, the bag man, because I had to haul everything because Sharon's hips were gone, and also get interviewed. And then I had to edit it. And I also want to thank Christian Bullman for his incredible soundtrack, amazing soundtrack. Anyway, Sharon's a writer, director. I'm just merely the technical guy, you know?
Well, Sharron, I want to make sure that we talk about the storyline that you created, because I watched it again last night. I know you did too, because we talked. But I'm surprised how valid and eye-opening this information still is, even though I was totally aware of it at 2012. I was part of the Barbara Marx Hubbard group that had the 2012 rebirth, the birth of a new species, part of all of that. But this was amazing how it put it into usable information for your everyday life. So could you talk a little bit about that, about your experience, because it's really your story.
As a very sensitive, healing artist, etc., I was experiencing at that point this chaos of society, which to me has even become stronger now. All the things that we spoke about, it's like in some ways we were very prescient. Jay is very prescient and has always looked to the future, his work with the Cross of Henday. And then the people, we were friends with many of these people, but we felt that here is this opportunity, this moment in time, 2012, that has been spoken of by so many cultures. And maybe we could get ahead of the curve. Maybe if we really brought the teachings together from all these traditions, and that's my background in many ways, looking at the symbolic and mythological teachings and the arts and the music of all these many cultures. If we could bring those together, we could really show something special and ask the question, this world that we're inhabiting now, even at that point, Alberto Villoldo, our dear friend, was speaking, and the Guerrero shamans were speaking about, we were living, we're not in a democracy, we're living in a mediocrity. Now, this was actually before all the social media, that was towards the end, it was just getting started there. And so it was actually, when I look back on it, a quieter time. Everything has accelerated. We have a quote from Terence McKenna, the great Terence McKenna, about how time is accelerating. Well, you feel it, I feel it, we all feel it now. And that's what we expressed. And there were so many interesting teachings that we presented. Jay came up, he had found the Georgia Guidestones. We might have been the first ones to bring out those, the Georgia Guidestones. And later I'd like to read actually what they said, because it's very relevant to what's happening today. So it was a lot of fun, actually, because it was just the two of us running around doing this. And we were also very grateful that we were able to get Enya's song on our way home, which was, wow, we were just this little company starting out. And we're also very grateful to all the Unity churches, Centers for Spiritual Living, New Age stores, for just taking this up and really bringing these teachings forward for us.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about that. They were all those spiritual centers really gave us a lot of help. Yeah.
Well, what's amazing is how far in the future you were, because even though your circles may have been talking about 2012 in 2005, many of the other spiritual people were looking at channelers and looking for help from the Palladians, and they were looking for Nasara to come in and help them. And what's so beautiful about this movie is the connection to the earth and the connection of us as humans in harmony with the earth. And that's ancient wisdom, but it was forgotten. So could you discuss a little bit about your connection? I mean, your timing, you're way ahead. And Sharron, you were way ahead with your Divine Feminine book too. So the two of you with your alchemic vision of what is to happen, could you either one or both of you talk about this, please?
It was interesting when Jay and I met. I had been very deep in India on fellowships from the government, living with the great Sitara Devi, queen of North Indian dance and Bollywood star. So deep into the ancient tantric teachings and in the Tibetan as well, with the Tibetan alchemy. And Jay was deep into Egypt and Western alchemy. So when we came together, it was this like incredible merging of experience and knowledge of these various cultures. And it was amazing how we found the correspondences. And so I think that was how we began. And 2012, we did a similar thing, finding all these different cultures that we've been part of and actually had the teachings, right? We didn't channel this. So, and except that we had a very interesting experience. When we were thinking about doing this, we were taking a walk in Seattle on the beach, and Jay was holding the book. And this guy this book of Jeff Stray. What was that called, Jay? 2012.
Something about 2012. It just come out, and it was a compilation of all the 2012 kind of prophecies and things, and we were having a really loud discussion about, you know, spending a bunch of money making the movie, right? It was like more like a business discussion. You know, what the give and take of what would happen, how would it be done, how much it would cost, and was it even worth it, right? Because does anybody even care about 2012, right? And we were loud. We were both really loud, having a very loud conversation on very sunny, beautiful summer day. And go ahead, Sharron, what happened?
So a guy, maybe in his 30s, maybe, was riding by on a bicycle. And we saw him going by, and all of a sudden he stopped. And then he turned around and came back. And he goes, "What are you reading? What is that?" And Jay?
I showed him the book. I said, well, we're thinking about, we're thinking about making a documentary about what's going to happen in 2012. And he looks at us and he goes, "Oh yeah, you should make that documentary. That would be a big hit. Everybody wants to know that stuff." He got back on his bike and he went away. We're like, what the hell? Some stranger comes over and tells us to make the movie? You know, who was that guy? What was he doing listening to us anyway?
That actually points to a topic we discuss in the movie that was brought up by Jose Arguelles, the great Jose Arguelles. I really enjoyed interviewing him about synchronicity. That as we move into this period of, they said it was going to be timelessness. And we're all experiencing very strange things with time these days, but that we would go more and more and more and more into these synchronicities, where things like this would happen, where an idea you have would somehow be confirmed. Someone would appear in your life and it would push you into the new experience that you were meant to have.
Yeah, as a very wise person once told me, that as the great masters disappear, and they are disappearing, synchronicity becomes the teaching. And so the universe is pushing you from event to event, and most people don't even know that they're having a synchronicity. But if you are aware enough to know that you're having a synchronicity, wake the F up, because you better be looking around at what's happening, because somebody somewhere is trying to tell you something. And again, over and over through the making of the film. We just had one synchronicity happen after another. We'd meet some person and they'd have this whole new take on what was going on, and they weren't famous, but we still shot them and interviewed them, and it was really amazing. And you know, I have to say, the Enya one, that's when I knew that we were in it, because we were nothing. We were absolutely nothing. We put out a few documentaries that were very low budget. And, you know, Sharron wrote this really moving letter to Enya. We had heard her song on my way home on the radio. And we thought, you know, that is such a pretty song. And then I was editing at the time, and I was looking for the big ending, you know, the big ending of the movie. And I couldn't figure it out. I could not figure out what I was going to do. And then we heard it and I went, that's the ending. And so I said, well, what kind of chance do we have? This is her biggest selling album that she ever had. What chance do we have of getting that song? And like, maybe 1%, you know, how we certainly couldn't afford anything. And so Sharron wrote this incredibly moving letter of how we, you know, I think we sent her a copy of the movie, didn't we? With the song edited in. Yeah, that's right. And then she wrote back a couple of weeks later and said, yeah, I think she charges $500 plus some royalties that weren't much. And I was like, $500 we're going to get this song for in perpetuity? And I was like, what? And so, you know, it's just, that's when I knew that we probably had a hit. If Enya liked it, then that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's, with all the work we've done, you know, when I reach out to someone, I want to touch their heart. I want to inspire them, bring out even what they don't realize they have. And that's, I love interviewing people, because, you know, what I do is open my field, have really good questions, you know, do due diligence, read their material, right? And then just give them full attention and take in the wisdom that they're bringing forth.
So as you rewatched this, what was the most important message that you felt is 10 years later after the event? It was more than 10 years later than when you published it, but right now it's 2022. What was the thing that you went, yes, it's still valid. I still want more people to watch this?
Okay. We have a love of nature that we have continued. We live out in amidst 14,000-foot mountains, very rural. We have a beautiful garden that we tend with much love. And I think about in 2012, I start the film by talking about the chaos going around. Well, look, it's even gotten worse. Many of us have woken up, I mean, really, really awakened to what's happening. And I think the Georgia Guidestones actually, I think we should do a whole show just on what they say and their relevance to what's happening now. But the main theme is always discovering one's true nature. John Jenkins in the beginning talks about finding one's divine eternal nature that's beyond all of these things going on in what we refer to in the Hindu Vedic tradition as the Kali Yuga. As Jose Arguelles, he says Kali Yuga, which is the last of this cycle of 4 ages, because these cycles keep going. And that's something we talk about in the film, that time is cyclic in many, many traditions and show the correspondences. He said, we're in the time when the karma has become the heaviest, where the amnesia of all of our knowledge, all of our abilities, like the telepathic abilities we have, we just look to the shamans, they still have those. And the remembrance of who we were has become the least, where materialism has become the densest, and where science, we come out of these ancient sciences. I mean, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, they're at least 5,000 years old. So in these days right now, when they're talking about trust the science, but these things, it only can be this Western science that isn't even that old. To me, that's absurd. And we really have still been and will always be focusing upon the beauty of nature, not only the outer nature that we see, but the inner nature. We talked about it even then, about working with your emotions. How do we feel the passions that flow through us, and how do we free ourselves from the excessive, intense mind control programming of the media, which has only become more and more and more and more intense. And it became clear, we made a film later, our only actual feature film, called The Last Avatar narrative film, where we talked about the archons. And Jay really likes to talk about the archons a lot. And it feels like this archonic, this kind of greed, parasitic energy has only become stronger. But the thing is, at the end of the age, and we talk about this in the film, at the end of the age of the Kali Yuga, it's like the great alchemical distillation. And of course, all of the garbage, all of the poison, all of the stuff will come out. And that's what we see around us now. But there are still many of us, and beyond, who our audience was then, a lot of people are now very aware of what's going on. And that's why we made the film. We made it, we knew this moment was coming and the people will be looking at it. And how can we use this moment to create a really spiritual transformation, where we're in harmony with each other, in harmony with the earth. And, my recommendation, since I live in nature and water the plants and say mantras and eat this incredible food that my gourmet chef, Jay, makes every day. Oh my God, it's so good. That's really important. And so we made it to open people to the possibilities and potentials of what could be and the experiences of what was actually going on at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, it should also be noted that nobody knew about the Georgia Guidestones in 2006, and hardly anybody knew about the Denver airport and the murals that were there and the Freemasonic associations with the stuff at the Denver airport, which I had seen in when it was just first built in 1995. I went there and saw it and was perplexed because, again, I was right in the middle of my research for my book that I was writing, and all the murals looked just like a lot of the stuff that I was reading about in the alchemical books. And then when I discovered the Georgia Guidestones, and they're across too, by the way, they're built in a cross fashion. Then that really perplexed me, because the guy that built it was R.C. Christian, and Christian Rosenkrantz is the person who founded the Rosicrucians. So, I was like, what is going on here? And they were both talking essentially about the end of the world, or about a big change that would happen. The murals at the Denver airport are divided. There's 4 murals. 2 of them are saying that we can build a world, we can take a sword and turn it into plowshares and build a world of peace. And the other 2 are saying, one's an extinction, where 3 of the races on Earth are extinct, and the other one has the guy with the gas mask with the dove stabbing the dove. And so they're like giving you a choice. You know, you have a choice. You can either have this world or this world. Which world do you want? And that's also what the Georgia Guidestones are kind of saying, you know, this is you're living in your world, but we're offering you another world. I'm not saying it's a better world. I totally disagree with people who say that the world has too many people. I swear you could, if you had 10 billion Zen monks, you would not even notice that there were people on the earth. If you had 1 million Bill Gates, the whole place would be destroyed because they'd be flying around in their private jets and all the other stuff they do. So I don't buy any of that. I love the human race. But yeah, we were the first film. And I think that we put those near the end after we'd kind of Sharron and masterfully guided everybody through kind of the spiritual aspects of all of this. And then to get hit at the end of the film with, you know, first the Georgia Guidestones and then the Denver airport murals, it was like, whoa, this is real. This isn't fake. You know, there's some groups out there that are planning some kind of large change, which I think we're in right now. And I like to think that, like Sharron said, we got ahead of it with the film, and that we took, we manifested complex spiritual memes into something that was edible. And I think that's what it was. And then again, you know, first the interviews with all the experts like John Major Jenkins and Jose Arguelles and Alberto, and then we showed the Georgia Guidestones in the Denver airport, and then of course we play the Enya song, which means on our way home. We have to find our way home. That's the whole point, and that's really the point of the movie is, and I think that's what we're doing right now as the age of Aquarius. So the 2012 marked the last period of big change in the age of Pisces. We're still 8 years to go before Pisces ended. So at December 21st, 2020, Pisces ended and Aquarius began. And you can feel that there's a new, like a third of the population is tired of the Pisceans. They don't have nothing to do with them. They're tired of their wars. They're tired of their manipulation. They're tired of all the 2,000 years of crap that we've had to live through. And when you have a large group of people that no longer want to participate in that society, it's going to fall apart. And that's what's going on. We're moving into gigantic decentralization of the world right now. The supply chains are dictating that. And so we got in front of it. And so people were spiritually more prepared than the people in charge wanted us to be. That was really the whole point, was to get people to start thinking in a way, because you can't solve political problems at a political level. You can't. It has to, they're going to have to be solved at a spiritual level, because the politics are just too divisive. You know, as a wise person said to me today, if you speak in nuance, you will be attacked. And that's really where we are today. And nuance is everything. So, you know, and one last thing is, everybody in the film is a generalist. All the people that we interview are what we would call generalists. We do not celebrate generalists anymore. We celebrate specialists. So everybody has a special thing that they do. They don't know anything else in the world but that specialty, and so they have no worldview. They don't know what Jack's doing over there. They don't know what Sam's doing over there. Nobody knows what's going on. The generalist, though, he and she are watching everything. And they know a little bit about all the subjects. And they're the ones that we have to go to now. They're the shamans. The generalists are the shamans. The shaman can read all the faces on the tribe and know exactly what they're thinking. And the great observer, right? And they're quiet until it's time to talk. And so I think that's what that movie, and both movies, Time Wave 2013 did too, because even like Terence McKenna and Gene Houston are really generalists. And I think that's the thing is, that we have to get back to in our society is celebrating people who have a wider world view than the specialists. I'm not saying we don't have to have, we want specialists. We definitely want brain surgeons and all that, but you know, we do have to celebrate the generalists, the more shamanically oriented people in our society. And they will guide us. And what Sharron did was she took a popular medium of DVDs at the time, and kind of unleashed their power, you might say. And so a little tiny company that has virtually, you know, no money or anything was able to unleash a huge film on an unsuspecting world. And you know, I think that let me put it to you this way. I know a lot of very influential people, especially as my years at Gaia, and I can tell you, I've been told many times that they thought that film had a huge effect on them.
Right, right. Well, that's what I wanted to say is I think I've had it maybe 8 years. I don't know how long I've had this film, but I've had it a long time. I've watched it a lot, and I did not know about the Georgia Guidestones before I watched this. I didn't have a good handle on the difference between the Mayans and the Incas. I mean, I kind of somehow in Western culture put them all together. And what I wanted, the reason why I came on to ask you another question, Jay, is that one of the things that I loved about this movie is that your knowledge of architecture, of European architecture. One of my degrees in college was art history. It was the Italian Renaissance, but
I love that area.
Yeah, but that's another thing that you really go into depth about is how is that knowledge of space, light, sound, geometry. How could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so, but basically, you know, the Gothic cathedrals were built in a warming span between 1000 and 1250 before it got cold again. And people were working about 15 hours a week. That was the average work week at the time. So they had plenty of time to build a Gothic cathedral, plan it out and all that. This is what we're told anyway. And so what they, because they didn't have doctors, not really. And so what they had, what they were doing was they were taking a place that would be build a place that with the right acoustics, the right geometry, the right lighting, the right everything, with the also where it's placed in the right alignment, and then the towers would draw down etheric energy down into the floor, and there'd be a labyrinth. They're mostly all gone now, except at Chart. And you would walk around in circles, chanting and sing Gregorian chants, and the organ, of course, is this huge organ, and you would be absorbing all of this. That's why the cathedrals were open 24/7. Anyone could go there at any time they wanted, because and they were filled with sick people, right? That's where you took your sick people. They'd be laying in the pews, you know, and trying to get healthy again. And they're still that way. And you know, some have been castrated, you might say, with the putting on the metal roofs at Chart. Pretty much shorted it out, but yeah. So my vision of the world in a couple hundred years in the Aquarian age, after we get into it for a couple hundred years, is to rebuild this kind of world. Tear down our houses, tear down our buildings, and rebuild everything into sacred architecture, so that because of our mental illness, the mental illness is increasing because you can't live in glass, steel buildings. That's shorting everything out, and spiritually, you're just shorting yourself out. And if you have forced air heating, I mean, these are all just terrible things, and we don't even know it. We don't even think about it. And so I think that is my vision, is to rebuild the old world. You might call it Tartaria, and rebuild it all. And again, you know, this 2012 was that first step towards that, you might say. The first time that people actually started considering that these were not just beautiful ornate buildings.
Well, I love that. The other part of this that I wanted to bring up that brings both of you into the discussion is that there's a lot of this, it's kind of a subtle communication about divine beauty. And even with that architecture, that's, I was in awe because I've stood in some of those buildings and I never, you know, we wonder how they built Stonehenge. We wonder how they built the pyramids. We wonder how they built all these things. But then you look at these Gothic cathedrals or even the Renaissance buildings and oh my God, what genius, and it's divine beauty. It's truly another connection to the divine, which I think is another theme of as far as a remedy for the situation we're in that's in this movie. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I feel, having been really immersed in ancient cultures, there's a subtlety, there's symbols, there's an opening of your senses, and there's a real appreciation of nature and beauty and the connection between us. It's interesting, when I was interviewing, it was Alberto, of course, Alberto Villoldo, who spent many years, he had been a cultural anthropologist, and he spent many years in Peru with the shamans. And he brought up this concept of the fact that we're living in a cultural trance. Jose Arguelles called it the dream spell, right? And when you think about it, there's been this push towards conquering, right? Toward, you know, conquering this country and that country and conquering space, until on the earth there was really not much left to conquer. So what these forces decided to conquer our minds. And so they've cast, it's like we're living in this spell cast where we have we're chained to the computer. We're not even aware of what's going on around us. We've lost touch with growing our food, you know? And this is what, you know, my prayer is, that we can help all of us together and change this.
Perfect. Well, again, how do you, I'm going to add Jabek and both of you as far as divine beauty, because I think that is part of the spiritual emergence that's happening now, is us being in appreciation and gratitude for the divine experience, rather than fighting in the old paradigm. I'm seeing this as a door opener to the new paradigm and a choice. And in some ways it's full circle, because it's almost indigenous alchemy that we're talking about, because they understood. What do you think about that, Jay?
Yeah, I think what the principles of where we're headed is love, truth, and beauty, and as opposed to what they present us, which is hate, lies, and ugliness. And so that's where I think, that's what I kind of try to live by every day, is I try to make my world more beautiful all the time. And I try to stop and really appreciate the beauty that's all around me. And then love as much as I can, you know, it's an unlimited emotion. So, you know, you just don't judge people as harshly as you want to, maybe, and back off a little bit and bite your tongue and not say the things that are going to hurt people. And then, of course, truth. Always speak the truth and always live in the truth. And when you hear a lie, you must hiss like a cat. And if you can, claw at them, because we don't want any liars around us anymore. And you know, and if you turn on the media now, it's just all lies. It's all lies. And so there's no point in turning on the media, is what I'm saying. There's no point in any of that. That's just lies. So it's not, if you're not living in love, truth, and beauty, you need to get there. And you need to, you know, what you watch, what you listen to, what you eat, all of this is all part of it. And you need to get your act together, because the time is running short, and we are moving really quickly into this next phase. And it's not going to be what the World Economic Forum thinks it's going to be. There's never going to be, you will own nothing and be happy. We're never going that way. No, that's not, no, it's completely different than that. It's the opposite of that. It's actually, we're going to go out and live on the land and own the land and be happy. And we're going to have a community and friends, and it's going to be a completely different world. You're not going to go to rock concerts anymore, or any kind of musical concerts anymore, but you will have great music. It's just going to be local. Same thing as food-wise, you know, everybody's going to have to figure out and bend the law or whatever, figure out how we're all going to be able to produce enough food to serve our community. And these are the problems. These are real problems that we face, not problems about gender and all this other stuff. We're about to face real problems like an empty stomach. And that is going to be the big dividing line. And again, I think 2012 and 2013, the two movies really threw a wrench into the plans of the elite, as they did not realize that there are forces out there that would cause a spiritual rebellion against their archonic influence.
Well, I would say, oops, I'm trying to put all of this in, excuse me. Oh. What I was thinking is that this showed us a way through the indigenous alchemy to a way of peaceful co-creation of a new, going back in full circle, just like our timelines are full circle, 26,000 years, hopefully without huge earth changes, but have us go back to that appreciation and connection to Mother Earth and our humanness. That's what we're talking about, I think, in these movies, versus depending on technology to fix us and save us, which is kind of the party line, you know, oh, we'll just be able to use med beds and all this stuff, and it'll all be all better. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But yeah, in the meantime, what is the purpose of having a human experience and being here at this time if it isn't to be self-actualized and to really reconnect? Yes, Sharron.
We've all just come out of this cocoon of COVID. And it's interesting how it impacted people. Some of us that had the tools went even deeper and have come out renewed. How do we bring these tools to the mass of humanity? How do we do that? That's the question that I have. And I do want to mention, I found when I was watching it, I'm like, when we got to the Masons and the founders, that's a big buzzword these days, the founders. Here we were talking about what the country was built on. And to me, having grown up when I did, the Hindu tradition, the Vedic tradition, talks about truth, virtue, and integrity. And it feels like that's what our founders were going towards. And look where we are now. It's interesting, you know, the shamans, the Kero, when we interviewed them, said something like, you know, the world would be turned upside down. And other traditions have said that during this period, the lie would become the truth. So clearly what we need to do is heal. And we need to, there's so many ways out there for free on the web, right? So many teachers of Qigong or Tai Chi or yoga or all of these mind-body practices that help us. And we also really need to think about our children. We said that in the movie. What kind of world do we want to leave for them? Robots? Being on psych meds all the time, thinking it's cool. The more meds you're on, the cooler you are. I actually know someone who's in a school in Baltimore, 15 years old, and that's what they say. The more meds you're on, the cooler you are these days. So how do we, you know, reverse this trend? How do we bring people back in touch with the natural world and stop this victimization, this, oh, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. You know, it's like, wake up. You're a divine human being living in this sacred body. So that's all the work that, you know, I've been doing ever since then. It's to help bring out the knowledge and empower people, especially our children. So many are lost, and they really got lost during the COVID. And so how do we bring them back into a joyous life and learn to play again and have fun? This is what we need.
Yes. So Jay, how would you speak to that? I know that Jimmy Church says you're the smartest man he's ever met. So I'm hoping you have some good ideas of how we implement what Sharron is talking about, where we allow people to have a blessed experience here without this tremendous struggle. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just that it's going to be a complete change. That's all we have to. It's not going to be easy. I mean, I'm not going to mince words here. It's not going to be easy. A lot of people are not going to be very happy about what's going to happen here. But I mean, the ones that are aware are going to be happy. And this is a paring away process. I hate to say it. Those that know what they have to do and then go do it will survive what's going to happen. And those that aren't paying attention won't. And so in the end, it's only going to be the people who are paying attention, which is kind of cool. So, it's clear that we're not going to be able to drive soon. Gas, they're preparing for $200 a barrel oil. Yep, I just read it yesterday. And so that'll be $10, $11 a gallon gas in the greatest energy producing country on earth, where gas should be about $1.50 a gallon. But they're actually telling us that they're raising the prices to change our habits. Okay, they're actually telling us that's why they're doing it. So, and that's also with the food supply. They're cutting off the food supply. All these food processing plants have burned down, including the one that I get my organic food from is burned down. And so, this is a great way to end this. We must move into this future, and we have to do it now. This is it. This is that change. The one we were talking about in 2012, both in the year that we made the movie 2006 and in the year 2012. Well, that's happening now. It's 10 years since the great change. We're concretizing that other reality. We will be taking our computers and our high technology back to the country. We will be in control of it. It will not be in control of us. We're going to have a great bifurcation. Half the people are going to be on meds. They're going to be in their apartment playing video games and on drugs. And that they can have that world. I'm a very tolerant person. Now, do you want that world? That's great. But that's not the world that the other half is going to be living in. And in the end, if there is any kind of catastrophe, like, it's going to be the other ones that are going to survive. And then that's how it works. And this is how history works. And those who can see the future survive because they prepare. And those that don't see the future don't survive because they don't prepare. And so don't be a chump, prepare.
Yes, be aware. It's one thing to be obsessed. You know, some people, they just get into the darkness and they're obsessed on it. And it's like, and they let, you know, it's like, oh, did you hear the latest? And meanwhile, there's life going on. You know, there's a concept of impermanence. Every moment is precious. Mm-hmm. Every moment is here for learning, for loving.
That's beautiful. So I want to end our session today with making sure that people who have not seen this movie, or hopefully we'll still get to do one on the next movie in this series, but who have not seen this movie know how they can see it or how they can own. I guess I have a classic because it's a DVD. And I still have a DVD player. But anyway, can one of you share how people can access this gem?
Yeah, we'll put the link. We'll put the link in below, and it's our membership site that we've just started. We have quite a few members. I'm quite surprised that we had so many fans, and it's just for them. That's as our gift to them, and also the companion piece with Gene Houston and Terrence McKenna and a lot of big people. Time Wave 2013, which in some ways is even better film than 2012, The Odyssey. I think my personal filmmaking skills improved greatly over the time period, and we were on the ground in Peru talking to the indigenous shaman and finding out that the alchemical traditions of Europe were pretty much the same exact alchemical traditions that they had, which was a serious mind blower. So yeah, that's how they can watch it. We'll put the link below. And I want to thank everybody. And I want to thank all the subscribers. And we'll have a lot more goodies coming at you over the next few months. So hang on.
Well, thank you, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you.